Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 11, Past Tense, Part 1. In this episode, Bashir, Sisko, and Dax have an adventure in the past and accidentally/predictably mess up the timelines. So, what did you think about this completely unique and cliche-free episode?
Hey, this is the first time travel episode for Deep Space Nine, I think.
Yes, and it's good to see that it didn't completely follow step with almost every other time travel episode from every sci-fi series ever.
So you sound very keen on this.
Well, I actually liked it, even though it was so cliched. Like, it is just, they got the book from the library, How to Write a Time Travel Episode, and I went, oh, okay, let's read this. In fact, let's not read it. Let's just copy out the example in the back and change the character names.
What would the example in the back have in it?
Your characters go back to the past. Some of them stay where they are. Characters in the past accidentally, first they try to not interfere, and then they accidentally get a crucial person killed, or whatever. Then they have to take that person's place. People in the future say, oh, look, everything's changing. We've got to get them back. And then they can't get them back until they've solved all the problems. Spoiler for part 2, I guess. This happens in every sci-fi show. This idea is so common.
It still works, though. It's the details.
Yeah, it's certainly, I guess, not bad that it's a common plot line. Or not necessarily. And here I think it's actually pretty decent. So, I mean, I like this episode, don't get me wrong. It was really good fun, to be honest. I liked it. The clichéness is a bit distracting, but not too bad.
At least they don't waste any time bumbling around trying to figure out what happened. They pretty much find out immediately, oh, we sent him in the past. And then the people in the past realized, oh, we're in the past. Pretty quickly.
Yeah, they did use quite a bit of waffle from O'Brien to explain it / pad out the episode a little. It wasn't too bad, but during the second serving of waffle, I was getting a little bit tired of it.
How did you feel about the serving of waffle to explain their untouched pocket of time inside a timeline that has changed?
Well, that was expected waffle, so I'd got used to blanking it out at that point.
It's kind of a necessary evil because we can't have Kira and Odo and O'Brien suddenly vanish, but then we need to be aware of the stakes. We need to know that things have changed because of what they've done and not just speculate, well, that could have huge ramifications, but who knows? So this way we get both.
Yeah, this is the way this storyline always plays out, and it's a massive plot hole with this storyline that is the same for every sci-fi show that uses this plotline. They have the same plot hole every time.
Which is?
Well, okay, so Gabriel Bell got stabbed up by Angry Hat Man. And now Sisko is going to take the place of Gabriel Bell. And I can't say whether or not he's successful, but let's imagine that he is, and he manages somehow to restore the timelines back to normal. That would all have happened as one incident. So the people in the future see the timeline change to him unsuccessfully taking Gabriel Bell's place. Yet he goes on to successfully do it, presumably. So where does that timeline come from? I don't think I explained that very well, but did that make any sense?
I understand. I understand what you're getting at.
The people in the future are seeing all the timelines that are happening based on the current state of the people in the past, but that point in time is simply a narrative situation. Everything that happened in the past would have happened to the people in the future, so the final result of what happens in the past would be what the people in the future would see consistently.
Yeah, it wouldn't morph and change.
Yeah, the story of Sisko and Bashir doesn't have some special property in time, other than that's where the narrative is. Yeah, other than temporal tomfoolery, I only had a couple other criticisms.
Let's dive right into those.
There was a line that I disagreed with completely. It's a line I hate when it shows up, which is not where, when.
Yeah, that is used all the time.
Yeah, whenever anyone's missing in time, it's always not where, when, as if that's a clever, insightful way of putting it forward, the idea that they're missing in time, that is. And to be honest, if it happened in real life, it probably would be. But from a writer's point of view, that's not clever writing, to use the same witty comment that everyone else uses.
It's one of those comments that people can't resist using when the opportunity presents itself. It's like, we've got company.
Be good if O'Brien just said that.
What if he mixed up? We've got company. Oh wait, no, that's not the line I wanted.
Looks in his book of cliches. Ah yes, here we go. Number 95. Not where, when. So we are recording this in 2015, and this episode largely takes place in 2024. How do you feel it did, knowing that this was filmed in the mid-90s, so it would have been 30 years ahead when they filmed it, and now only 10 years ahead? How do you feel they hit the mark on social issues in the United States 10 years from now?
I would say it's depressingly accurate, more accurate than I wish it were.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree. I mean, obviously it's hokey in places and kind of fanciful, but it's honestly not that far off the mark.
Some parts are difficult to watch as an American in 2015, such as Bashir moaning about how difficult it is to get mental health care.
Yeah, that is so close to the mark now. I guess it probably was back then. Although I think how the problem has worsened since then, they were kind of on track.
Yeah, and then the stuff with rounding up homeless people. In a lot of cities, it's essentially illegal to be homeless. They pick up people for vagrancy and begging. So, yeah, it's more accurate than I wish it were.
It's kind of surprising because most sci-fi shows, when you approach the year that they're made, a good example would be Back to the Future 2, which is this year. They're nothing like how they're portrayed. Usually they're miles off with what they guess. So it's kind of surprising that they did kind of get it right. Well, not right, but if you had to rank them, I'd give them an A.
In that regard, yeah, I agree. I also liked seeing the technology that they came up with. Obviously, it's not as advanced as what we see in the show usually, but it has to be more advanced than what technology was at the time. So they're doing past technology of their fictional future, and they did a good job with that, toning it down and having little bits that were advanced and others that remain the same.
Yeah, they had to credit not credit cards, but cards with money on them. And ID cards, in the UK they tried to get ID cards passed as law about 10 years ago now. And it didn't go through, but it was close.
I had no idea.
It wasn't very popular. One thing that they kind of goofed up was that Chris Brenner says he owns Channel 90 of the net, which is very strange, as if the internet would be like a television network or something.
Well, the internet was in its infancy.
Oh, yeah. It was barely 2 years old. So I'm not saying that shame on them for messing that up, but it's just odd how they thought that might turn out. I mean, they're not even that wrong. There's Google and Facebook, you could say, are significant forces in the internet.
Yeah, channels 1 and 2.
Yeah, there you go. So he's not Chris Brenner, he's Sergey Brin or Mark Zuckerberg or someone.
Speaking of Chris Brenner, I really didn't like that part where Dax tries to pretend as if she knew all along. She says, "Oh, that Chris Brenner." Because I imagined someone doing that now, someone saying, "Oh, that Bill Gates." It would come off so weird.
Oh, you're that David Letterman. The one off the telly. I knew I recognized you from somewhere. I just couldn't place it.
Oh, that Mark Zuckerberg. Got it.
Yeah. Dax did a good job of completely owning the situation and sleuthing her way up to getting a hotel room, a new ID card. I don't know how she even did that. What did she type in? That money. It's I don't know if it's because she is a pro 300-year-old 8 lifetimes symbiont with so much experience. But I know Avery Brooks, who played Cisco, said that it may, or he reflected on it being a sort of racial thing. Cisco and Bashir both being sort of non-white, I guess, got thrown in the homeless district, whereas Dax, being white, got treated to better deal. I don't know if he's right in that analysis, but it's an interesting way to look at it.
I think he is.
In context of the plot, I don't know, but in terms of the real world and situations that would arise, yeah, it's completely...
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way during the episode. I just saw it as a way for the writers to show us these slums and also to show us the high status people, so we get a sense of the disparity. Someone had to go up and someone had to go down. We had to see both sides.
I think the writers were not trying to make it a racial issue, but, well, Avery Brooks framed a lot of Star Trek as racial issues, which I think often he is correct, because there's a lot in Star Trek that is about dealing with cultural or racial issues. But not totally convinced this episode came out like that, although, well, you could argue it either way.
It's kind of a reach, though. There's not a whole lot in the episode to support that hypothesis.
Yeah, if the police had found Dax first, they might have sent her to the sanctuary zone. But yeah, then you kind of think maybe they wouldn't have. Who knows? It's interesting anyway, I guess, to ponder. We got 2 rules of acquisition quite quickly, and one from Cisco this time, which is nice. He's been reading up.
He's trying to overcome his Ferengi hate.
Or is he trying to learn about them to use their own rules against them, which is what he does here. So we got 111. Treat people in your debt like family. Exploit them. I don't like this one that much, because it's the exploit them at the end is kind of tacked on to make it pithy, but when you add something on like that, it feels like it's in brackets almost. Like, yeah, by the way, that means exploit them because the
In case you
Ferengi
didn't
are
get
bad.
it.
Yeah,
See, we use the word exploit because that has a negative connotation, and the Ferengi are bad.
yeah. I think it's a reasonable rule. I think some rephrasing could have improved this. Obviously, they wanted the exploit them bit to be at the end, so that initially it sounds good, but then you realize, oh, those Ferengi, they're up to no good again.
Yeah, it's not as effective when they are written in a way that reminds us they are written by humans writing a character.
Yeah, they should be meaningful rather than punchy, I think.
And 217, you can't free a fish from water.
This one I like
Why?
because it's short, it's not phrased in a gimmicky way. It's something that can be applied in many situations or many contexts. You know, it feels like a proverb, but is it an Earth proverb? I don't think it's an Earth proverb,
I don't think so.
but it seems like it could be. So I think they hit the mark on this one.
Yeah, I agree. That's the sort of rule that they should be striving for. One thing that bothered me with this episode are the tough guys and how they don't actually feel threatening, and that's often the case with TV tough guys.
Which tough guys did not feel threatening?
The guy with the hat, angry guy with the hat.
I thought he was a bit menacing. The other guys outside the doors, I thought were a bit bland. But Angry Hat Guy had at least got that uncertainty factor. It wasn't really clear what he was really doing, which I always think makes for a good bad guy because you can't predict them. That's scary.
He felt loose. I'll give him that. But I didn't like the guys on the stoop.
Yeah, they were like, ooh, go away. We are going to be tough, so go away. Oh, come back, though. You can just come in.
And give us your pajamas.
Yeah, why on earth did they want those?
That made no sense. Let us give you more layers of clothing and grant you entrance as long as you give us those pajamas.
Yeah, especially as in one of the scenes, Cisco is warming his hands from a fire. It's that cold. They apparently even gave him their gloves.
They're really nice, tough guys.
Well, they're nice enough to get naked with them. Would they really agree to that anyway? Hey, okay, I've got a plan. You can come in the house, but we have to exchange clothes completely.
Deal.
Okay, so then two of their guys and Cisco and Bashir all go into a room. So who strips down first in this situation?
Cisco, for sure. He's comfortable naked.
They all go in the room, they turn around, Cisco's already naked.
He brought it up. He's the one who wanted to change the clothes.
Okay, so now Cisco's naked, one of their guys is left to get naked, and then they'll change clothes. Why wouldn't they just take his clothes at that point? I don't get it.
If you had a naked Cisco before you would do what he says.
Well, fair enough. Well, they get into the house anyway, and there's nothing in there, so it was all a bit silly, that scene. The whole idea of guys blocking the doors made sense, but you'd expect the inside of the house to be a bit more interesting than just a derelict house.
It made me think of little kids, little boys not allowing girls into their super secret fortress.
Yeah. I have to ask you, do you have a quote today from this show?
I do. If push comes to shove, if something disastrous happens to the Federation, if we are frightened enough or desperate enough, how would we react? Super serious episode, so I went for a super serious quote.
It's interesting. It's a shame Bashir had so much pontificating in this episode. For the first half, he's basically walking around spouting off this moral analysis of how bad the situation is. I like your quote because it touches on something that they've touched on before, e.g., it's easy to be a saint in paradise.
Yes.
They really want to push the Federation into corners in this show, or they want to try to. So here he is again talking about the same sort of thing, how the Federation is great, but how much of that greatness is simply because of how easy they have it.
Which is a fascinating thing to explore, and we're getting example after example of that in this episode, and I love to see that stuff.
Yeah, the grittiness of this episode actually is such a refreshing change from the sort of factory fresh, usual Star Trek stuff. Okay, so what is your prediction for part 2?
They succeed.
Oh, you think? No, the timeline's messed up. The Federation's gone forever.
It'll be patched up and they will make it back home. But it's not the result that matters, it's seeing how they get there.
Well, that's true. Sisko will be Gabriel Bell. He'll die as he foretold. Then Bashir will live out the rest of his life as a homeless drifter.
I do like how Sisko's knowledge of history is what raised the stakes in this episode. It's fitting for his character and it was natural.
Yeah, although it doesn't make sense that Bashir didn't know, because he said already a couple times in the past he knows a lot about history. But then suddenly throws that away with the line, "Oh, I don't like 21st century history."
He could have been boasting.
Well, yeah, true, I suppose. It's good that Sisko was the one to tell it, though. I don't think it would have worked quite as well with Bashir, to be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought that with the roles reversed.
Yeah, he's too sort of smug, and he seems really posh as well, so I wouldn't have bought it.
By the way, who is running the station?
Garrick?
Garrick and Quark?
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough. We need to watch part 2 before we can conclusively have any opinions on this 2-parter.
Oh, I'm not allowed to like this part 1. Not yet, anyway.
Well, imagine it was The Matrix and you liked it, and then you went to see The Matrix 2.
That is a thing that happened, and I wish it did not.
Okay, onwards we go.